All right, people, today we're replacing the starter in the 2005 Toyota Corolla. Okay, so the starter, this is the front of the car. Here's your radiator shroud. The starter is right there. That's the I believe the solenoid on the front of the starter. That's what we'll be working. But the first thing we do before we start horsing around in there is disconnect the battery, because there's a lot of juice that goes down to the starter, and you'll arc weld one of your tools to the frame of your car and your wedding ring and everything else if you don't disconnect the battery first. So do that, then come back. All right, now let me show you a little something I do. You might think it's silly, but here's what I do. When I disconnect the battery, I like to take this positive terminal, put a little rag around it or something, and then stuff it down in a little hole here. The reason is because I don't want to get horsing around in here and stop paying attention and then flop that cord back up on the terminal and complete the circuit, and who knows what kind of fireworks will happen. Maybe it's overkill, but that's what I like to do, and now I don't have to worry about it at all. Now that we got the battery squared away, the next thing we got to do is make room to get the starter out. I really like that on this Toyota, I don't have to lay on my back and dig the starter out. I can do it from the top, but there's not enough room. So we're going to take this radiator shroud fan, we're just going to take it right out, and it's not going to be that hard to do. We've already started the process. There's a little bolt right here, and what was that? Trusty Sidekick, Josiah?
10 millimeter.
Right on. 10 millimeter socket will get you that bolt out, and on the other side, on the passenger side, there's another one right about down there. And you might think, well, what about the bottom? Well, on the bottom it just sits on some hooks, and I'll show you that here in just a second. Okay, what you're looking at right now is the driver's side bottom of the radiator shroud, and I told you it was just a little hook that sat on a peg, and so I want to show you what it looks like. When you undo the bolts at the top, you can just lift this right off that peg, and it's like that on both sides. Now I've moved around to the back looking forward for just a second, because there's the electrical plug that needs to come off the fan motor, okay? And it's just a push tab that you push with your thumb, and then you can pull the plug out. Now the cord is captured, it's attached to the fan shroud itself by these factory installed fancy schmancy zip ties. Is really what they are. There's one here and there's one right here, and what I just started doing is I took some side cutters and I cut those off, and I'm going to finish cutting this one off. I figure, hey, I got zip ties, I can put my own back, right? In the meantime, I can have some freedom to work. Now the cable's free. I ought to be able to just lift the shroud right out of here. Oh yeah, one more thing before we lift the shroud out is we got to pull the overflow valve off this little nipple by the radiator cap. Now sometimes these things, when they're in an old car, the rubber will kind of start to stick and it's hard to pull off. So if you put some channel locks or pliers on it, just gently give it a twist, it'll snap free, then you can pull it off with your hand, no big deal. Now we're going to see if the trusty Sidekick Josiah can lift this radiator shroud out of the vehicle. Well, all right, see, so easy. Even a trusty Sidekick Josiah can do it. Now we look down in here and we got all this room in here. We can put like 2 starters in there if we wanted to. All right, now let's look at the connectors to get this thing out. We have 2 nuts, one right here on the driver's side that backs out toward the driver, so that actually the threads are pointing into the passenger side. So we're going to pull it out that way. That's the back one, and the front one is a little bit lower. It goes the other way. It backs out to the passenger side, threads go in to the driver's side. So that's 2. Those are the only 2 bolts really to hold this monster in. Then we have this rubber shroud that keeps the road junk off your post. And there should be a couple of connections under here. And then we've got the little push tab clicky outy plug deal, and we should be able to just yank that off. Then the starter should come out. So we got the 2 bolts out. Remember, the one on the driver's side went in like this. The one on the passenger side went in like this. And as it turns out, 14 millimeter is the socket you want to pull those bad boys out. Okay, so we got the bolts out, and we just wiggle this thing out. Okay, so here we go. See, we got all kinds of room that we wouldn't have had if the shroud was in there. I might be thinking, oh hey, what about the electrical? Yeah, but dude, it's so much easier to undo it sitting like this than it would have been if this was turned back under there like that. You couldn't even hardly see them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pull this little shield back, and we're going to undo this one and undo this clip. Now be very careful. Bring it around the back here so you can see this is your unprotected radiator now. So you got to be real careful that you don't slam this into those little fins and destroy your hardware here. That would make this job a lot more expensive than it needs to be. So just be real careful as you do it. Just got back from the auto parts store. Had a nice little conversation in the truck about the virtues of capitalism and the horrors of communism, because honestly, who's got time for that crap? Anyway, got us a brand spanking new starter for the 2005 Toyota. So now we're going to put it in the vehicle. Basically, we're going to work in reverse order, do everything backwards from what we did to take it out. Here we go. The starter goes in oriented like this, with the gears facing the back and the solenoid out front. So we're going to lower it in a little bit, and we're going to put this wire under this nut right here. Now the new starter comes with the new lock washer and a new nut. That's kind of nice. So if you accidentally lose the old one in the snow, it's not that big of a deal. And this is a 13 millimeter. Getting ready to tighten down the nut on the starter that I showed you in the last little clip. So I'm going to adjust my wrench from the lefty-loosey to the righty-tighty, and then I realize I don't have the little adjuster knob dealie. So what the heck? And we searched around and found it on the ground. It snapped off. Why did it snap off, you might ask? Well, because it's made out of plastic. Not cool. What's that name say right there? Plastic. This one, on the other hand, what name does it say? Pittsburgh. Where do you get Pittsburgh? Harbor Freight. This will be the third wrench from this set of Craftsman that I replace with Harbor Freight ratchet handles. Do with that information whatever you like. Got the nut tightened down on the copper post, and now I'm going to slide this rubber boot back over the top. And of course, this just keeps all the road grime and grossness off that connection. Okay, and then I've clipped the little clip right back into the port right there. So now we're ready to go. Everything's connected, and this now just needs to be put back into position and bolted in with the two bolts that go opposite direction. So now we're gonna just put this thing back into position, which is really pretty easy. Man, I really like changing these from the top side better than from underneath. I'll tell you what. That should match up once the teeth engage.
You might have to turn the gear.
There it is.
You got it?
Yeah, so I think what happened is the teeth were just a little bit mismatched, and I just wiggle it around a little bit, and there it is. And I can tell it's matched up because this this surface here is parallel. You know, there's not a gap. It's not opened up like that. It goes, and it doesn't wobble when I press against it. So ready for the bolts now. All right, so this is the bolt that goes in from the driver's side pointing toward the passenger side. As you can see, my fingers fit in here pretty well. Kind of hard to get a wrench in. I'll go around from the other side and stick the other one in. And this one here's a lot easier to get to. It's kind of right under the solenoid. You can see it. There's a lot of room down here for your ratchet handle, which you probably figured out by now because you took it out that way. All right, so we'll drive those bolts in there with the wrench, and then we'll put the shroud back on. So I'm trying to tighten up the bolt that's on the driver's side that points to the passenger side, just to give you an idea how irritating this is. There's the socket on the bolt, and it's got a 3-inch extender on it, and the 3-inch extender has the little U-joint dealie on it, which you see if the camera would focus, and then I've got the medium extender, and then I've got the long extender on the adapter on the Pittsburgh ratchet handle that we have to use because the Craftsman broke. Now we're ready to put the radiator shroud back in, and with the help of Trusty Sidekick Josiah, you can see that he is holding it in such a way that it is oriented in the way that it will go in the vehicle. Now, if he backs up just a hair, I'll show you a couple of things. One is, you know it's oriented correctly because you have the overflow hose, which is going to go right back on that nipple. Remember, we pulled it off with a pair of pliers. And then I wanted to show you, when we got it out in the open, these little hooks. There's one there, one on the bottom, which is nice. There's bolt holes at the top. They're easy to get to, but the little hooks are at the bottom. That makes it really easy to put back on. Toyota did some pretty smart stuff. And just to look on the inside, down here on the driver's side, here's that little post with the T thing on it. And that hook just slides right over top of that post. And there's one over on the other side as well. Right there. All right, so we just finished up putting the shroud in there. And as I told you before, I used my own zip ties to replace those factory ones that we cut off. And now that's done. Okay, the shroud is back in, so let's make sure we got everything right. Let's count. We got the bolt over here, the bolt on the other side behind that reservoir, which you can't see. We have the 2 zip ties that we replaced, one here and one there. We plugged the electrical plug back in for the fan, and also we got the overflow hose plugged back in under that cap. That should be everything. So now all we got to do is reconnect the battery, get all our tools and junk out from under here, and she should start right back up. Well, there you go. Starter replacement in the 2005 Toyota Corolla. Trusty Sidekick Josiah. Job well done.
All right, now I'm going inside.
Cold, bro? The hills are alive with all kinds of working room.